Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Taylor coming to us all the way from Ohio. Hopefully the weather's a little bit better than it is. I'm not gonna lie, everyone I know because we talked about it before we started recording this podcast. But I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play the dummy for a little bit now for all you guys. But yeah, she's a bodybuilder and she's on here to share her health and fitness journey with us. And yeah, just talk everything health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest, Taylor. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I already spoiled it first of all. But what's the weather like in Ohio today?
So today it's actually 41. It's pretty gloomy. It was actually more sunny yesterday, but we did have snow this past week. But it's warm today. It's like 41. That's warm for Ohio. It's all over the place all the time. So that's just how it goes.
Yep. Well, I mean, it was like 25 degrees yesterday up here in Minnesota, and now it's like 0. And then, so it's funny. The day before that, it was -10, and then it went all the way up to 25, and then now we're back down to about in single digits again. So, yeah, that bipolar winter weather. But before we depress everyone with that, why don't you just give us your backstory first off on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and become a bodybuilder?
Do you want me to start from the very beginning? I
Yeah,
can try.
sure. Take as much time as you want.
It's funny because the older you get, like the longer your story gets. I'm like, all right, I'll give you the quick version. But I think the first time that I noticed that I was interested was back in like middle school. They'd have us do those fitness tests. I don't know if you guys had to do them over there, but in Ohio, we had to do a fitness test.
First of all, don't remind me of those because the only reason I never won the Presidential Physical Fitness Award was because that stupid stretch thing that they had you do, where they
Oh,
had you like.
always got
I'm
to
6'3", so I could and I cannot. I mean, I'm not that flexible, so that's the only reason I never got it. And it's
yeah,
still to this day, it still pains me.
I know. It's crazy, but I was super competitive, so I was like, "All right, let's do it." And I grew up actually on a competitive dance team, so that part was actually not hard for me because I was pretty flexible. But I think that's the first time I got into like interested in, I don't know, fitness in some aspect. I was like, I have to get this presidential test. And then from there, I did competitive dance, I did cheerleading, I cheered in college. Bless you. So I cheered in college at Youngstown State. So shout out to the Penguins. And we got to work out with the head football trainer a couple times a week as part of our own workout. So that was really cool. And I think a lot of the girls like took it lightly. They were like, "Oh, I'll grab these 5 pound dumbbells and just kind of go through the motions." And I was like, "This is actually pretty cool." So I don't know. I took it seriously, and I think he liked that. And then he saw some potential in me from there. And I think that's the first time I was like, "Okay, let's do this regularly." And then I was doing my own workouts, and I went through that phase that I think everybody goes through where you like do a crazy amount of cardio and you cut all your carbs. Don't recommend. Took a toll on my body, but you start to see results and it's addicting. So then from there I was like, all right, let's do it the right way. Like that was really too much. Like that much cardio. I was, running on the treadmill sprints 20 minutes a day and took a toll on me. So I was like, all right, I want to do this the right way. And I kind of was back and forth about competing for a while. And then this past year, I was like, all right, let's go for it. Like, why not? So, and I also started coaching at Cycle Bar. I don't know if you guys have those out in Minnesota, but it's
Yeah,
indoor.
I think we do. Yeah.
So I kind of got into that. And I think that's when I realized, like, okay, you can do things, like, you can do stuff. Like, I think for the longest time, I counted myself out just out of maybe self doubt or too hard on myself or, it's not for me. And then that kind of flipped the switch. Like, okay, if I can coach Cycle Bar, I can do a lot of things. Let's just go for it.
Well, you mentioned Youngstown State, and I just want to say because I'm a Nebraska football fan, I got my Nebraska thing on. Bo Pelini's the head coach at Youngstown State. I don't know if he still is, but yeah, he was the head coach at Nebraska, and then he went to Youngstown State. So the moment you said that, I was like, oh yeah, Bo Pelini. I miss him, but he made the program relevant again, but then he left, and now they suck again. So hey,
That's just how it goes, right?
yeah,
That's
that's
New Youngstown State, 'cause a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't know where Youngstown is," but
yeah. Well, and then I always used to play all those college video games and stuff like that, so I'd always know them from the Penguin and everything like that they'd have. So that was, hey, that's great. And when you were getting started, I mean, there's so many misconceptions about the sport of bodybuilding, especially female bodybuilding. Did you have any myths and misconceptions about the sport that you personally were thinking of when you were getting started, or were you one of those people who just wanted to just dive right in and just see what happens?
yeah, I think I was back and forth for a long time because it does get kind of a negative rep sometimes. There are parts of it that, there are coaches that maybe don't go about things the right way, and then people have a negative experience. So a lot of what I was hearing was maybe not good things. It was like, "Oh, I was eating like basically nothing and doing a ton of cardio." But I think the important thing is like I did my research on coaches, on teams, and found that, that's not everybody's experience. So I'm just glad that I took the time to do that and just didn't base my own decision off of one person or a couple people's experiences.
What were your friends and family's reaction like when you announced to them, like, "Hey, I want to be a bodybuilder"? That's not something that a normal person really says to their to their parents.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten really lucky because my family's been super supportive throughout my entire journey, but there was some pushback like, is this healthy? Are you going to be eating? Because like I said, the stories I was hearing was people basically eat nothing and do a ton of cardio. So that was my mom especially, she was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you going to be eating enough? Are you eating at all?" Like, so and once you talk to them, sit them down, like, you know what, yes, there are people that do it this way, but I am on a team that doesn't do it this way. They're a lot more understanding, and I actually did a local show that they all showed up to, like my mom, my sister, my grandparents came, so it was super cool, and it worked out well.
That's awesome. And yeah, just having that support, I mean, that makes the difference for so many people that, having that support really just adds that extra added push that a lot of people, desperately need. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast because, I mean, let's be honest, everyone's on social media and I hear this every single time. Oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. And, I just want to strangle them and just, you don't understand that if you were to work out just like them and eat just like they do, you're not going to get those same results. But on top of that, whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And then they have that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion. My back took off for me, and being 6'3", my legs and my lower body, don't even get me started. I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't even gain an ounce. I mean, it's just, it's never going to happen. But what was one body part for you that really took off? And then what was one body part that you just had to drag behind?
So definitely my legs was my strong body part, and I'll speak to, we actually, my coaches and we thought I was going to be in the wellness division originally because I have a more dominant lower half, well, we thought. And then just with the training, I kind of ended up being evening it out and being a little bit more proportional. So now I'm competing in figure, but I did both this past season. But definitely my lower half was a strong point. And then a weak point, I mean, I wish I knew. I guess I should probably know like what my weakness is. I'm like, I don't know. I guess the glutes took the longest to like see the transformation in, like when I was prepping. Um, I think my glutes just being defined or what took the longest. I was getting super worried close to shows. I'm like, are they going to come in tight enough? Are they going to come in tight enough? My coach was like, it's going to be fine. So
Yeah, good for you, lower body. All this. No, no, and again, that's why I love to ask that question because it just shows that everyone's different. But one thing I noticed about you is that you tend to get like when you get very lean, do you tend to get like very, very veiny? Because like I've seen some of your posts where like even like your forearms are like super veiny. I'm one of those people where I could get as lean as I can, and you're not going to see. You might see one vein in my entire body.
yeah, I don't know where that came from. It's kind of been like that always, at least in my upper body. But the vascularity it was wild during prep. It was insane. Even in like my legs, I started to see it. I'm like, I don't know, that's got to be genetics. But
Yep. No, and that's one thing that I've really noticed to myself because yeah, it's like I would have to get down to like 1% body fat to really, I think, really see anything. It's just, but hey, it's you know,
people honestly get a little creeped out by it. They're like, what is going on with your body? I think it's cool, but
oh yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I'd be concerned about like like accidentally like bumping into something and like popping a vein or something like that. So I don't know, but yeah, I think yeah. I mean,
I
it,
like
it oh absolutely yeah. It's a good look. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but like when you're getting ready for these shows too, I mean, this is so much more of a mental battle than it is a physical battle, and most people don't understand that because the mental journey is it's 100 times more important than the physical journey, but people only recognize really the physical changes because it's like you can't really dig into someone's mind. But what's this journey been like for you mentally, because I mean that has so much more of a lasting impact than the physical changes have.
Oh, I agree. I think my favorite part about prep was just what I gained as a person because of it and who I kind of became like overcoming challenges, and I mean those experiences make you grow. Like there's no way to not grow from it even mentally. So um I think honestly the improvement season that I'm in right now is harder mentally because when you're in prep, you're seeing the changes, like the work you're putting in, you can see the results. You're like, this is so worth it. Like, yes, it's hard. There are hard days. There are days where you feel weak or whatever. I mean, that's going to happen. But I think it's been harder now mentally just because you're watching the scale go up and you just got to find a way to celebrate that. Like, hey, I'm getting closer to my goals. The goal is to grow. And there's no way to do that without the scale going up a little bit. So just trying to embrace that.
How do you deal with those days where, like, you don't feel like working out? Because, like, I've had some people on there be like, "Oh, it's never happened to me," and I'm like, "Okay, because you're my guest, I'm not gonna call your BS out on you," but, like, everyone has those days. How do you deal with those? Because I mean, I think that's what differentiates especially bodybuilders from the general public is that, bodybuilders, they find a way to push through it, but the general public, they'll make all the excuses and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'll work out tomorrow," and then tomorrow becomes next week, and then so on and so on. How do you deal with those days where your body is just basically telling you, like, "No dice," but then you somehow just manage to go in your anyway?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, I know there's a saying that's like dedication will take you way further than motivation. And I agree with that. I mean, you either want it or you don't. That's just how it is. And also, too, I've just gotten really good at listening to my body. So if you got to be real with yourself. If your body is beat down or you're feeling it, it's like take an extra rest day, and just embrace that. And on the days where you're like, no, I can push through this. Do it. I don't know. I think it's just being very aware, being very self aware, and understanding that the rest is just as important as the rest and the recovery are just as important as the work you're putting in.
Was that hard to sort of gauge your body first off? Because, I mean, so many people, it's hard to differentiate pain and injury, especially when you're first getting started off.
Yeah.
Whether it's just pain. Does that take just a lot of trial and error for you to sort of figure out how to read your body best, or was it one of those things? Some people are born sort of, I think, with that inherent kind of like deep down where they're just like they're able to judge, but that's very rare trait to have. But what was that like for you, sort of figuring out what works best for your body? Because that can lead to a lot of, especially injuries and a lot of other stuff for people who just don't know their limits.
I mean, it's definitely taken trial and error to figure out, um, that point of balance, because there were days during prep where I was like, um, going so hard that my body was wrecked, and it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to pull back a little bit, and that's hard to do when you're somebody that's like, am I doing enough? Can I do more? Like, I'm constantly trying to progress in some way, so it's hard mentally. My coach would be like, just take an extra rest day. I'm like, what do you mean take an extra rest day? Like, we're 4 weeks out from a show. And I think that was like the hardest part, is just understanding, learning that that recovery is just as important. And then when you go back to the gym, you're going to feel better, you're going to actually progress more because your body's recovered. I mean, it's hard to make progress when you can't operate at your fullest potential anyway. So it's almost like take the time off, come back stronger. And I think just mentally having a coach has been super helpful in that aspect, because when somebody tells you, hey, take an extra rest day, you're like, okay, I mean, you're telling me to do this. So I think as long as you have a coach you can trust, you're like, all right, we're on the same page about it.
That's why I tell everyone, if you're getting into this lifestyle, get a coach, because so many people try this without a coach, and it's just like I'm just like, oh my god, you poor thing. Where it's especially with what I'm about to talk to you about, the posing, which that's a no, it's a whole different thing in and of itself. But let's just jump right into it because I already spoiled it for everyone. What's your relationship with posing like? Because that, for so many people, they do not understand that is the hardest thing for so many of these competitors.
I mean, you're spot on. That was my biggest struggle, hands down. I mean, I was super conditioned. The feedback from the judges was a lot of like, conditioning's there. One, get bigger. Two, work on your posing, because and to that, I mean, for weeks and weeks, we thought I was going to be in the wellness division, so I was only practicing wellness routines. And then at my first show the night before, actually, I went to a posing clinic. The show hosted a posing clinic. One of the judges was like, "Hit a lat spread." I was like, "What do you mean? I'm wellness." And she was like, maybe your figure." So long story short, I ended up jumping. I crossed over divisions at my very first show, so I learned the poses the night before. Um, yeah, I got on a FaceTime call and was like, "Okay, um, you know, let's figure this out one way or another." So I think the posing, I mean, the details do matter. Um, but it's just something that comes with practice. I mean, even my second show, I went up for an overall and was pinching my lats and my lat spread, so they didn't give it to me. And it's just like one of those things that I didn't even know I was doing that. So I guess the more eyes you can have on you and just the more you can practice, the better.
You're the first person that I've ever talked to and this is gonna be like my 510th guest that has said literally that the night before they learned an entire new division posing. So hey, the fact that that you had the courage to go up on stage after that, I mean, more power to you, because I know most people would be like, hey, no, maybe I'll do it next show, but yeah.
That's just me to a T. I mean, I'm all for like whatever. I go with the flow. I'm like, I looked at my coaches. I'm like, well, should I do it? They're like, well, yeah, you should do it. Why not? I'm like, all right, let's go. So I don't know. I mean, what can you lose at that point, right? Like you get up there. It was my very first show ever. For even my wellness division, went into it with no expectations. I'm like, it's the first one. Whatever happens, happens. It's going to be a learning experience no matter what. And I have this saying. It's like, it's never win or lose, it's win or learn. So at that point, I was like, let's do it.
No, and hey, that is a great attitude and mindset to have because yeah, I was if I like I told you before, like 99% of the guests that I had on, if I would have told them that, they'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not gonna go step on. So yeah, and it's like, yeah, what are you gonna lose? And it's like, what's the worst case scenario? What, you don't look good doing doing some poses that you just learned the night before? Oh no, bad. So yeah, that's a great attitude to have. But out of your wellness poses, I'll go since you only had one day to practice figure. What is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
Um, I guess for either of them, I really like to pose. I like the back pose, just like the shots of the glutes in the back, because for me, like I said, that was what took the longest to come in. So I was just mind blown when you get into like peak week and show day, just mind blown by the backside.
Now, what is your least favorite?
um, anything on my bad side. I have like a good side and a bad side. So I ended up changing my routine for my second and third shows. And I was like, you know what? The one side's just way too awkward in my individual routine. I'm just going to stick to to one
I'm not
side.
even gonna ask her what her bad side is. Everyone can just look at some of her photos, and if they're as
Yeah,
bad as she says, then
no.
I'm pretty sure they'll be able to tell themselves. But no, yeah, that's I mean, and back, you got it right. I mean, and plus with the back, the other positive thing that I tell every guest that might say bad things about the back was like, hey, you don't have to have a smile then. That's the one thing people don't understand, that your jaw muscles after this show are going to be some of the most sore things, just because you're not meant to be smiling that much enough anyway. So it's just
Yep.
yeah, it's just the little things that come, especially with posing, that I think most people don't understand. And then the biggest thing is, especially when I have like physique competitors or bodybuilders on, they're talking about like doing like a front double bi, and it's like people don't understand you are flexing more than just just what the pose is named after, and especially with even figure two, where it's like doing like a front lat spread. You're not just doing your lats, you're doing your
Yeah.
legs, you're doing your stomach, you're doing your back. I mean, it's yeah, there's just so much little things in this
Pretty
that
funny because even on the weekly basis, I like get so sore from posing, and I mean, you don't know it until you're in it. I mean, that's not something I knew going into this prep. I was like, "Oh, I'm kind of sore from these poses." It's funny because, like, you know, Instagram has the close friends. I have close friends, and I take videos to send my check-ins to my coach, and I always put the bloopers in my close friends group, and it's usually me, like, hunched over, just like, I'm sore from posing, so it's a lot of work.
what's your experience with like with those high heels too? I gotta say, because that's one thing where it's like these people have gone through enough dieting down and stuff like that. It's like, why you got to make them more high heels on this? And I get like some people like it, but it's like that just adds even more of a level of difficulty. What is your relationship like with those high heels?
It's funny you ask because if you ask anybody in my friend group, like when we go out or anything, which isn't very often, but if I do, I'm not wearing heels, like not unless I have to. Um, so that was honestly one of the things I was like, am I really going to get up there and put these heels on? Like, am I really going to do it? And I mean, I actually loved it. Like when I was on stage, I just kind of felt natural. Like maybe it was the competitive dance my whole life, but I got up there and I was like, oh, I actually thoroughly enjoy this. And the heels weren't bad. I mean, you practice enough, you're in them constantly in prep. So
Well, and I mean, like if I have like a gymnast on the podcast or something like that, like I'll ask them, like, do you really think that gymnast really helped you when it came to, your bodybuilding lifestyle? Do you think that your dance background at all helped you in any aspects of bodybuilding? I mean, it probably helped you in the stage aspect too, where like you're not as scared to go on stage, but anything other than that stage presence that you think that dance background helped you out at as you started your new journey in bodybuilding?
um yeah, I just think like the worth ethic. I mean, I was on, like I said, a competitive dance team and then also cheering in college. I was in a leadership role, but I just think, you know, all those years of having to work towards something. I mean, you either did the work and you got better and you got a center spot on the team, or you didn't and people were going to pass you by. So maybe just even that competitiveness and that mindset kind of set me up for probably success in bodybuilding.
Well, yeah. I Again, there's so much more to this sport that all. I mean, just that extra added. I mean, if I've guessed, I mean, it's weird because I've had like half and half. Where like half the guests I've had on have been like, like yeah, I had his background in sports, and the other one are like I've never even touched a ball or anything in my entire life, so I don't know what's going on. But I mean, it just yeah, that I will say that sport background for a lot of the yes, I think impacts more a lot than a lot of people think. But I mean, we didn't talk about nutrition yet, and I saved it for the sort of the middle part here because I mean, That is one thing that most people still do not get to this day is that, I mean, it makes up so much of the results that you see. That, I mean, the abs are made in the kitchen thing, that's, it's so true. And, all the other things. What were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to take things seriously in the gym?
So I think that the controlled environment, like around nutrition, is just so important. Like just being consistent. Um, and then too, whenever my macros go up or down, I've just found that it's super beneficial to just kind of keep the same foods. Like everyone wants to overcomplicate a lot of things in this sport. And I'm like, it's not that serious. Like if your macros go up, okay, I'm gonna eat some more potatoes. I'm gonna eat like I was probably already eating potatoes, but now I'm just eating more potatoes. I don't know. I think a lot of people want to overcomplicate it, and if you just like keep it simple and I don't know, a control environment, it makes it way easier.
I just think that we as human beings tend to overcomplicate, almost every aspect of our lives too, where it's just like, yeah, you just eat a little bit more chicken and rice, and you just try not to add some variety every once in a while. Please tell me that you're not one of those competitors that like has to put like mustard on their chicken and stuff like that, because like I saw that and I was like, oh god. See, I would do that. I would do that low fat ketchup then or whatever like that. I'd be like, okay, I gotta do the low fat ketchup or whatever because I hate mustard more than like just seeing that. I'm just like, oh my god, you're just ruining a perfectly good piece of chicken right there.
Gotta do what you gotta do. I love mustard though, and my mom can speak to that because I was a kid that like pulled packets of mustard when we go out to eat and would like save them and eat them later. I was weird. I've been weird for a long time.
Hey, I used to okay, so since we're getting into that sort of topic, when I was a kid, I used to make a ketchup sandwich, 2 slices of bread and just put ketchup in it. Yep, ketchup sandwich. Yep.
You're just on the ketchup side. I'm on the mustard side.
Well, no, here's the thing. I used to love ketchup when I was a kid. I used to have all my corn dogs and stuff like that as a ketchup, and then probably when I got to like 8 or 9, then I just stopped. I just stopped liking it for some reason. But I have an uncle who still, to this day, whenever he comes over, he has to bring his mustard with him sometimes because we don't have any at our house. So it's yeah. I just, hey, I mean, hey, whatever's better for you. And also, please don't tell me that you're one of those competitors that you're watching the Food Network constantly because, like, that's a form of torture that, because I have, thank God, because I have some of those guests on that, like, they watch the Food Network while they're getting ready for a show. And it's like, that's torture. Like, I don't watch movies about vacation when I'm 2 weeks out of my vacation at work, basically. So, that's just, yeah,
You get it.
yeah.
But also to speak to nutrition, I just want to touch on one more thing because I find it super interesting that some people prefer meal plans and some people prefer macros. So I do macros and I love it. And I think it's taught me a lot about how, like, you have this, say, I like to think of it as like a food bank. Like, you have X amount of carbs, proteins, and fats per day. I could technically eat whatever I want. But I think it was a good learning experience just because it's like you have all this room, you can do whatever you want, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. And just I don't know. I try and fill it with whole foods. I have my things that my staples that I like to keep in just for like the sweet tooth moments, but mostly whole foods.
What's your favorite sweet tooth food?
Um, I don't eat this every day. This is like a if I have an intuitive eating day, but I love ice cream.
What kind of flavor is your go-to?
There's a place in Cleveland, it's called Mitchell's. It's just a very well-known place, but they have this like praline flavor of some sort. It's so good. I don't know. I get it every time. But I've been like that forever. I used to eat 6 Oreos before bed with a bowl of ice cream when I was a kid, and I had like a six-pack abs. I'm like, "Why is that not working now?"
I wish I could get back and have the metabolism of a young. If I mean, I can't believe they haven't invented something like that yet, where it's like have the metabolism that you had when you were like 10 and you could go
Yeah,
have like 5 hamburgers every day and just say,
or even like the mindset, I think about a kid and like kids don't think about running, they just run, right? The second I have to run, I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like work." I miss being a kid and just being like a ball of energy and just being able to just go, go, go.
"Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I would need to take, about 10 5-hour energies, basically to just
Yeah.
have that energy. But yeah, again, I'm glad that I'm actually glad when I had it at that age because I was like, if I had that energy now, like that would be pretty destructive. If like with all of my mind capacities that I have now, like if I was that, like I would burn something to the ground by accident probably, but it would just be like, yeah, it would not end well. So I think we're as a species we kind of got it right where it's like give all the young ones a little bit of energy. Don't give like the 80-year-olds all the energy because then God knows what's gonna happen then there. But yeah, I think we did it right with that at least. But I mean, especially with bodybuilding, what is that feeling like for you when you get to walk up on that stage and just show off all that hard work that you've done months upon months on. Because I mean, let's be honest, preps are a living hell, and anyone that says differently, I have a psych ward that I'll sign you up for, and I'll drive you to it myself because just for the safety of the public. What is
You might be taking me. I loved prep. I'm gonna be honest.
No, no, I'll rephrase that because I've had people that have answered that before, and I just like to rephrase that. You like the control that it had, and you like the discipline of it. You don't like doing the stuff that you did in prep. Please tell me that that's the case.
Maybe not maybe not eating less potatoes, that wasn't fun. I like to eat more potatoes. I'll speak to that. But yeah, anyway.
Yep. So then, what is that feeling like anyway when you walk up on stage and you just get to show off all that hard work that you've worked on prep for?
Yeah, I mean, it was nerve-wracking for sure, especially my first show. Um, but the other ones, it was just, like, so natural, and I didn't expect that at all. I was like, I don't know, like I said, I don't really wear heels. I'm like, I don't know what this is gonna be like, right? But, I mean, you're spot on with what you said, like, we work so hard to get so stressed in the moment to not enjoy it, and that's what I kept telling myself. And honestly, I had a really close friend who, before my first show, I flew to Denver, so I was on the plane. She's like, "Open this card on the plane." I'm like, "Okay." And in the card, what she wrote was something along the lines of like, "Don't freak yourself out so much that you forget to enjoy the adventure." And that's been life changing because that's so true, right? Like, you put all the work in, you've put the hours in. Why are you going to get so stressed out that you forget to enjoy the moment? So that's just what I thought about before I went out there.
What was your go-to post-show meal after?
Sweet potato fries. Us bodybuilders, we don't stray too far from, we eat sweet potatoes and then we're like, "Oh, let's have, for our free meal, we're like, let's get sweet potato fries."
I mean, I'm not gonna lie; those new Wendy's fries that they've got are some of the best fries I've ever had. So,
I haven't had them, but I'll check them out.
oh my god, you have
But honestly, post show, off season, I get it one day a week where I can eat whatever I want. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going with a home cooked meal. Like, I just love to go to my mom's house and be like, "Make me dinner."
a lot of fun, everyone. We can tell this guest.
I mean, my forms of fun are probably not
No,
what
no,
everyone else
no, no,
considers.
no. But hey, that's great. I mean, and yeah, this sport. Hey, and if you were a person where you're more like me, who like you get fast food like once a week as my cheat meal, that's what I always do then too. Like, I wouldn't really take you that seriously as a bodybuilder. Then where I'd be like, she's probably not really gonna last that long in this. So again, yeah, this is not a sport where you can really just slack off as much as your average person might doing that. But I mean, yeah, working at Cycle Bar and being a trainer there. I mean, how'd you get into that?
So that's a fun story. I told you I was running like crazy on the treadmill for a few years. And then it caught up to me. Like, my legs were trash because I was beating them to the ground on the treadmill constantly. So my doctors were like, "Okay, you can't run anymore." I was like, "Fine, I'll try cycling." So on a whim, I just went out there, tried a class, loved it. So I started going to back and was doing it, a couple times a week. And I did that for a year, and I remember having a conversation with a friend, and it was one of those like, "What job would you have if you could do anything and money didn't matter?" And I was like, "Be a cycle bar instructor." And then it kinda clicked. I was like, "Why don't I do that?" So they had auditions, and then, you know, shout out to my team there, where when people believe in you, I feel like everything that has happened, it's just weird how the universe just aligns, and like the people you cross paths with that change your life. I mean, it changed my life. They believed in me. I was like, all right, maybe I can do this. And then here we are. So yeah, I rode there as a rider for a year, and now I have been there instructing for a year.
Well, here's where you got that question wrong. If you could do any job and not have money be an issue, don't work at all. What are you talking? What are you doing? What do you do?
Okay, here's
Yeah,
what it is. So the cycle bar atmosphere, this is what I said going into it. I was like, if I can change one person's day, if I can switch one person's day around, I'll be happy. And the amount of people that come to me and are just like, "You know what? I had a better day because of your class." I'm like, amazing. That is all I care about. That is what I want. I want you to, feel confident, have a good day, feel better because of it. And if it's just one person, then hey, my job is done. So
I just said that because it brought me back in my senior year of high school. One of our teachers asked us that question, like as a class, and then
yeah.
everyone was like answering their thing, and they're like, "Ryan, what would you do?" And I was like, "Who the hell would still be working if they had that as a choice?" It's like, come on. So I just had to bring that. But yeah, changing one person's life, and that's why I like to do this podcast. If one person gets inspired by listening to one of these podcasts, and just says, like, hey, it's inspired me. More power to them. But with cycling, you got to be careful because I love cycling myself, but let's be honest, we don't live in climates that really support outdoor cycling for a vast time of the year. Where Yeah, yeah, the spring or the summer, is really your only best bet, and the fall too sometimes, but then sometimes it gets even too cold then to even really do that during the fall. But when it comes to just cycling and cardio, how do you like to regulate that? Because cardio is a little bit different, or I mean, cycling is a little bit different than running when it comes to, a form of cardio.
Yeah, do you mean, like, how did I incorporate it as
Yeah, how
far
do you
as
incorporate? Because like it's kind of, I'd assume that it might be a little bit more harder to track like what that's doing to your body as opposed to just running because it's doing a lot more. You're getting a lot more of an exercise, I think, out of it when it comes to just like your whole body, like your legs, and then your even like your upper body from just holding on to the steering wheel and stuff. Like yeah,
Yeah, so I do it 3 times a week, and that's what it's been both in prep and out of prep, and I just monitor my average heart rate, honestly, and I mean, there's ways you can pull back, so, um there's a gear setting, so you can either crank the gear up or you can turn it down. And if I'm having a day where I'm like, okay, I really can't go that hard, or if my coaches, like, maybe during prep they were like, hey, we can't go as hard today, we don't need to, it's not necessary, I'll just pull back the gear. But 9 times out of 10, like, if I'm telling riders to add gear, I'm cranking it just the same. So
if you're my instructor, and you tell me there's a hill coming up, I'll just tell everyone, nope, there's no hill. Nope,
yeah.
there's no hill. Just go straight
Well, you know
through.
what? That's the beauty of it, is you can make it whatever you want. Like, people are like, oh, I can't do indoor cycling. I'm like, you can sit there and just pedal if you want, I don't care.
Yeah, no, but that's yeah, no, it really, and that's a huge alternative to like running that I tell a lot of people. It's like, yeah, go do it. Well, for me, like, I could like I'm not gonna lie, I could do indoor cycling if I wanted to, but it's just like I don't want because outdoors is where it is for me. Just because I like to do it at night too, when there's like nobody out. I live kind of close to a little bit of a forest, like I live next to a big natural park, really, where it's just everything is just outside and stuff like. So I like to do that. That's really my really get out cardio. But what is your relationship like with cardio in general? Because like let's be honest, that's the number one bane of my existence. When I say running, I mean I hate it more than life itself. Like I can walk for God knows how long and just be fine. Like I've had some nights where I just went out and walked for like 4.5 hours just to like clean my head, and I walked like 18 miles or something like that. But like, how do you deal with cardio? Because unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you sort of sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. And I know you had that background of basically running yourself to death. So how do you deal with that now?
Yeah, I think my relationship with it is a lot better now, and maybe that comes from, well, it definitely comes from, having coaches that are not the type to program a ton of intense cardio. Like, there's really no reason to be doing hit workouts a lot of the time. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I have my cycling. I consider it hit. It's pretty high intensity. But luckily, I get paid to do it, which is nice. It definitely, like, I don't think twice about it. I don't know. I think my relationship's a lot better. It's come a long way from thinking you need to do hours and hours a week and eat no carbs to, okay, that's, you don't have to do that. And I think a lot of that comes from just like having coaches that I trust, and whatever they program me or whatever their protocol is, I'm going to follow it, and I saw results doing that, so it definitely helped.
Which you mentioned getting paid. I was like, if you want to get people into more shape, just pay them below minimum wage, just to even show up to a gym and just like you clock in and then you clock out and you're like, oh, just even pay them like $3 an hour or something like that.
I mean, I really can't even be mad, like,
yeah.
I'm like, I get paid. I mean, I was gonna have to do cardio during prep anyway, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm kind of one of the lucky ones that. And when you're looking out at the room, it's crazy. I don't even think it doesn't even feel like a workout for me. And I know that sounds silly, but I kind of forget about it. I'm thinking about a million other things while I'm instructing and like making sure everyone else is safe and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I got really lucky with that.
Hey, it's definitely a
Shout
great
out
job
to
to
Echo Bar.
shout
Yeah.
out to Cycle Bar. Anyone that's in the Ohio area, yeah, go and check it out. I mean,
They're
I
actually all over. They're everywhere. So check it
yeah.
out wherever you are.
Well, yeah, but if they want to have you as their coach, then or whatever,
Oh
like or
yeah.
you as their trainer, then you go and
I
you
sing
check
on
it
the
out.
mic, which
Yeah.
not well. Usually the wrong lyrics and completely off key, but
Oh
it's
God.
entertaining at least.
So wait, what's your go-to? Do you have like any go-to type of music that you like to have on there? Because I know some people that try to do like the high cardio, high intensity music, and then other people sort of like to do like the classic stuff. Where do you fall on the music selection?
So on a normal basis, I'll throw a little bit of everything in there, honestly, because I get a lot of different ages, and I'm like, it's not for me, right? If I was just gonna play what I liked, then maybe people wouldn't enjoy it as much. So I just try and make it as enjoyable. It's not about me, but I do once a month do a headbangers only ride.
Yes.
So it's very EDM based and like heavy hitter, and I headbang on my bike and all that good stuff. So
Hey, that's worth it. And I mean, as much as I would love to talk about that, I mean, we do have to talk about the hardest thing of this entire lifestyle, and I don't care what anyone says, it's sleep. Anyone that disagrees with me at that, I tell them, go pull an all-nighter, and then go try to work out and tell me how that goes. what is your relationship with sleep like? Because unfortunately, there is a phenomenon that I love to explain on this podcast that most people do not get, that you can get so tired that you won't be able to sleep. And that just seems sort of foreign to people. It's like, wait, you can be so tired that you can't sleep. But it's like, yeah, especially as you get closer in your prep. And what is your relationship with sleep like? Because I mean, it is just so important in your life. And I mean, I cannot tell you the difference between, even to me, like 5 hours and 7 hours when it comes to my overall day.
I mean, I prioritize my sleep, and I think I always kind of have. I laugh because I'm really good at taking naps. Like when I was when I was on my way to dance practices, my mom will tell you stories if you ask her. Not that you're gonna call her and ask her, but anyway, my mom will tell stories about I would have a 10-minute drive from school to dance practice, and I would sleep on the way to dance just because I could sleep anywhere. Um, so I have no issue sleeping. I never have, knock on wood. I don't want to now, but I sleep like a baby 9 times out.
God, please smite her for me, please, because I have taken probably a handful of naps my entire life. I'm just one of those people where I just can't do it. For me, a nap is literally just laying down and closing my eyes, but not falling asleep.
I mean, I'll tell you another story. I work from home a lot of times, and my lunch break is literally I'll go in to my I'll go in my room. I have a Google Home. I'm like, "Hey Google, set a timer for 60 minutes," and I nap, and then I go back to work.
Just count your blessings. That's all I'm gonna say. For me, yeah, I could. I just have that. I'm just too hyper for me. Where it's like, yeah, I can't do that.
I don't know why I'm so good at it, but I am, and
She's
it's a
just a
blessing.
sloth by nature, everyone. Okay, so it's just,
You know what
hey,
it is? I don't know that I believe everything about, like, the zodiac signs and everything, but I am a Taurus, and we're kind of known for being nappers, so stubborn and we like naps. I fit
well,
that.
I'm a Cancer, so the fact that I haven't broke down crying this entire podcast, is a
You're
miracle
doing
in and of
great.
itself. So,
Yeah.
that's why I don't believe. That's why everyone's like, yeah. That's why I never mention a sign. If anyone ever mentions a sign, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm a Cancer. Yeah, I'll just say something like that. Yeah. So, but that's, hey, we can do a whole podcast on zodiacs. I've been fascinated by that, and I have had some guests that are fascinated. I I don't I mean, I don't apply it to any aspect of my life, but I just find it just fascinating in of itself. But I mean, let's be completely honest. I mean, like, you're not the average looking woman, especially, as you get closer to your competition season, when you see all the shreds and everything like that. You sort of become like a mini celebrity, like I like to say, where it's like you draw people's attention, where it's like they're just like, oh wow, that's interesting. What has that been like for you? Especially as you've gotten through your first prep, just sort of realizing that you're like, hey, I am gonna draw more people's attention than I normally would.
Yeah, I think it's because regardless of I was, like, weeks and weeks out from my show, and I was losing weight, and people noticed that, and they love to comment on it. Um, "Oh, you look different," or da da da, and what they don't understand is that, like, 4 weeks out, I mean, I looked good, but I wasn't stage ready, so you get a lot of attention just because, you look good compared to what is normal. Um, Although it takes a lot more than just looking better than normal to win a show. So I don't know.
If that was, I'd win every damn show. You kidding? No, I'm just kidding. But
You know how it is. So
yeah,
yeah, I think
yeah.
you definitely get a lot of attention just because you do start to. I mean, you're doing extremes, so you drop weight, you start seeing all these cuts. People notice it. They're like, "What is going on?" Like, when's your show? But I think the hardest part is in the reverse, like where I'm at now. Like all of a sudden you're not losing weight. Nobody's gonna comment on. I mean, sometimes you'll get like a compliment on, oh, you're sizing up nice or something, but it's definitely harder on the other side when all of a sudden like all of those people are no longer commenting on it. And now you're just kind of like, oh, okay.
And there's whispering behind your back. Wow, Taylor's really let herself go. Good
Yeah,
God, what's going on there? Jeez.
but the whole time, even when people were commenting, I just, would take it very lightly because the sport definitely has its ebbs and flows, right? Like you cannot stay stage lean forever and the shreds come and go. They all have the shreds have their place, but so does the off season and so does building muscle and being able to push heavy weight in the gym. So
How do you deal with that mentally though? That weight gain that you have to put on, because I mean it's not easy, but it becomes easier like when you understand that it's for the greater good, basically, of your overall progress. But still, it's still not an easy thing to accept.
100%. I mean, it's like you said, it's not easy. I think what's made it easier is knowing that I keep going back to coaches, but my coaches have been great and I trust them. So it's just a matter too of if I'm following my protocols and I'm filling my macros with things that fuel me and make me feel good and it's not junk necessarily most days, then I mean, if I'm following my protocols and my programming and the scale's going up, I'm like, well, at least I can feel better about like I'm doing the things I need to do and I'm growing in the right way. So that's definitely made it easier.
And I mean, I always like to compare it to starting your own business where you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. Unfortunately, those two go hand in hand. But before we get to my last few questions of the podcast, I got to ask your tattoo that you have on your forearm. What is it? What does it mean?
Here, I'll get a little closer. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can read it. It
I
says,
carry your heart. Okay. Yep.
wow, it's clear. It's more
Yep.
clear than I thought. Yes. So I do have a couple tattoos. This one is the most visible. And my mom and my sister have the same saying. Theirs are in, my mom's is on her foot, and then my sister's is down her back. And we got them all together. So it was just like a. There's a book out. I don't have it. I forget who the author is, but there's a book. It's basically about the mom saying like, no matter where you are, I'm with you. So I carry your heart,
Hey,
a
that's
piece of
cute.
me.
That's cool. That hey, at least it's not like some of the guests that have like a wolf or something like that then on their thing, or they have like a yeah. But no, hey, I've
That's
never got.
their favorite one. I don't know if I'll be able to.
Uh-huh.
Let's see.
What it? I'm not seeing anything. No.
Is it on the other side? And I forgot.
Do you? Oh, you forgot what side your tattoo is.
That's amazing. This one is
What does that
actually my
say?
it's my dad's handwriting,
Ooh.
and it says "Love you, honey, love dad."
Okay.
So he passed away in 2016, and
Oh
I got
wow.
that
Sorry. Yeah.
a week after he passed. So that's my dad tattoo. Super special.
I will say though, she did forget like what side her tattoo, and that might
Yeah,
be one
I
of the
was like,
funniest moments.
where is it?
No, that's hey, yeah, that's awesome. And that is that is so great. And yeah, I've never gotten a tattoo in my life, and I eventually I might just get if I did it would just be like on my heel or something like that. But like I have friends that just get all these tattoos. And, hey, more power to them. I don't got nothing
This is
against
how
them,
it
but
is with everything, though. To each their own, right? Like
yeah,
if tattoos are your thing, cool. If they're not, cool.
my skin is just so pale that like I don't know what the ink would do to it though. Too, it's like I don't. Yeah,
A lot of people get afraid of the pain. I'm like, it's not that
Oh,
bad.
I'm
And
not afraid of the pain. Are you kidding me? It's just, I'm just afraid of how it's gonna look. I always just think of I have always things like what is it gonna look like when I'm 70? That's the only problem that I'm gonna have.
I
It's
feel
like
like I'm
so.
not gonna care when I'm 70.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, by the time that we're
If
70,
I make
there's
it that far, hopefully,
I
you
mean,
know.
yeah, I'm 27, so it's like by the time we're 70, they're gonna have invented something that'll like make us your skin like not look like it's 70 years old. So
Yeah.
we won't have to worry about that. Now the people that are like in their 50s and 60s now, they'll still have to worry about it, but yeah. So we got lucky at least with that, but now the final couple of questions before we wrap things up. Now, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Taylor, we made a decision, you can change one thing about the health and fitness industry or the sport of bodybuilding in general, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh, wow. That's a deep
I
question.
save them for the end here.
Ooh, okay, so what would I change about the sport?
Yeah.
You might have to cut some of this lag time out because
That's
now it's
fine.
making me
I
think.
can give you my answer first while you think about it.
Go ahead. I'm
All right.
curious.
So for me, it would be just not I wouldn't say fair judging, but more equal sort of judging. Where it's like if you were to do a show like 2 weeks shows like 2 weeks apart, one show might want you a little bit more of a leaner look, and then the other show might want you a little bit more of like a fuller look. Where it's like it's not. I mean, just so to have like more of a an open model really of what you want these competitors to look like that's like accepted as for every single like judging criteria, because some of these competitors like they don't know what to look like for a show really because everything's different for the so just have more sort of like a baseline of what you want, and obviously pay where it's like if you're a pro in the sport you should not have to have like a full-time job to be able to support your I mean it's ridiculous that like having a full-time job makes this lifestyle almost impossible to do like and it's yeah so that's that those are my two.
Well, to speak towards the criteria or like the standard, it's so funny because people come out and be like, "This is the new standard." I'm like, that person won like one show, but okay, sure. Like it's constantly changing too. I mean, you just got to roll with it, I guess. But yeah, it is a little bit frustrating because like one week it's like one thing, next is another. But it's super cool though when you look back on like years of how far the sport has come. So I will say that it's nice, and people are just getting more and more competitive, which is just crazy. Like the physiques are just insane now. It's like, how do you keep up? But I'm over here trying.
Oh, I want to see like 10 years from now what it's going to look like because who knows? Because like if you were to go like 10 years ago, like the bodybuilders now were basically, or I mean the physique competitors now were bodybuilders, and some of the figure competitors were basically bodybuilders then like 10 years ago. I mean it's just so drastically changed. But when we have you on a year from now, because I will talk to you a year from now because you are a great guest, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved when we have you on a year from today?
Wait, do you want me to answer the other question first?
Oh yeah, you didn't even. Oh, I thought you got. Here, we'll go back, everyone. So here, we'll pretend
Timeout.
like I
I
didn't ask
yeah,
that last
I
one.
didn't
Time.
say about
Yeah,
it. I
if only
thought
I was
about
Zach.
it.
Yeah, if only I was Zach Morris and I could do a timeout. But hey, I can't do that unfortunately. So yeah, you can answer the first question first. Then. Yeah.
Okay, so my thought would just be, I wish there was I almost wish that it was all natural always, because what I found in my first season as a natural athlete, which I don't care either way, like to each their own, do what you need to do. It was my first season. I'm like, I want to do it naturally, so I did. And what I found was like it's very hard to compete with people that are not doing it naturally. So not saying I was, ready to win. I mean, I did very well. Like I don't know if you want me to go over my stats. My first show, I took like first in true novice in both categories, and then second in my open category. My second show, I placed first in my open category for figure, which was just insane because it was so new. And then my last show,
Wait, so the girl that just learned the posing the night before got first overall?
in the true novice, yes, which is against people that are, never competed before, but I still took first. So, I mean, and that was all, it was conditioning. Like I said, the judge's feedback was like, you were spot on conditioning, but posing and get a little bigger. But anyway, at my last show, I ended up taking second in the figure open category. And the girl I lost to, well, like one, it's muscle maturity. She also competed in the masters, like 35 and over. So one, she's been doing it longer. And I mean, I don't know if people are on things or not, but sometimes you just wonder if
You can tell from some people. Like, let's be
I don't
honest.
know.
Like,
Sometimes you just wonder, like, am I losing because I'm not because I am natural, or I don't know. So I guess to answer the question, it would be I kind of almost wish it was just natural bodybuilding just to see like what would happen. But everyone teach their own, and enhancements are there and people use them. So
I have gotten into it with so many of the comparers about some of the dark sides of some of that stuff, which I mean, that's just for me, the fact that anyone would want to take anything after knowing like some of the side effects that happen and all that stuff, is beyond me. But hey, like you, more power to you. You still gotta work out. There's not one magic pill that you can take that, all of a sudden makes you gain all this size, because believe me, I'll be the first person to buy that damn thing if that really did come out. But it's there's just there's so much more to it. So
against it, I mean, as long as people are using that stuff responsibly, then I have no issue with it. It's just hard to compete with.
oh yeah, I tell people like, yeah, if you show up with a beard bigger than mine, then then I'll pull you aside and be like, okay, we need to have a little bit of a conversation about what's going on
Yeah.
now. So, but yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And then yeah, if we were to talk to a year from,
Can I say one more thing
yeah, yeah,
about what
absolutely.
I just thought about it, because speaking to that like masters category, so the open classes, you go against like literally everybody, right? And like I said, you kind of go against people that have probably been doing it for much longer. So the muscle maturity is just it's there and it's more advanced. So I almost wonder if it'd be better to have like an age. Like if I could change something, it would be kind of cool to see just like go against people your age.
Oh yeah,
Like,
some of these masters and pairs have been competing as long as you've been alive, really. So it's just like,
yeah.
and bodybuilding is the one sport where the longer you compete, generally the better you look. I mean, it's not. It's
Hmm.
just one of those sports where the longer you've been in, the better, the more muscle maturity you have. Like you said, like that's why everyone gets so excited. If there's someone who's like 22 years old and they're just like super ripped and stuff like that, that they're like, oh wow, that's gonna be amazing. I mean, it's yeah. So
Well, yeah, and it's like definitely a sport that you want to go for the longevity. That's why I'm like I'm in no rush. I'm in my growing phase. I'm in no rush to get back on stage. I'm in it for the long haul. So the stage will be there.
absolutely. And if we were to talk to you a year from today, where'd you like to be at?
So a year from today, I don't know if I'll get back on stage this year. It's kind of up in the air. We'll see. But hopefully next year, maybe I'll be, hopefully with more muscle, some growth of some sort, keep growing, keep learning.
If there was a genie that popped up and said you can gain one body part the most, would you say probably glutes then?
Yeah, for sure. Seems to be. I don't know. I hate doing hip thrust. I'm gonna be honest. I absolutely hate the hip thrust. I sat there, I was sitting at the gym today, just like about to do my hip thrust sets, and I'm just like, I do not know why I don't like this exercise, but I do not like it.
That's why I love being a guy. Everyone, no hip thrust for me. Everyone, that's why I love being a guy. That's one of the few things in the gym that you're just like, yes, okay,
I get out of this,
yeah,
yeah.
I get out of this. But
Maybe they have their time and place for guys too, but man, I
yeah,
dread
but
them.
also you're lucky being a woman though, is that you don't live an arms as life lifestyle, which basically every single guy in the gym lives by though too. So literally, it's just don't even get me started on that. Where it's like we communicate with our biceps basically, where it's just it's a never ending struggle basically. So hey, at least you get to focus on other body parts as well. But yeah, I mean Taylor, it was it was great having you on to, share your story. And I think you're going to do well. I think you're going to do great. I mean, obviously anyone that can, just learn a pose the night before and just, still go on stage and compete, it shows that you have a bright future. But again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. I mean, I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. We'll do it again in a year.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I guess I probably should. My coach, Lauren Bear, Dylan Bear, it's Bear Aesthetics is who I train under. And I definitely have to give a shout out to my mom and my sister because they've been my rock, through the whole thing.
They had to deal with prep brain, Taylor, basically. So, hey, more power to them,
Yeah,
I guess.
try not to use that as an excuse too much. You just gotta get to a point where you just enjoy the ride. And that friend, Katie Riley, is who gave me that quote about, don't stress so much that you forget to enjoy the adventure. And I think that could go along with, not just bodybuilding, but anything in life. Like, don't forget to enjoy the adventure.
Yeah. Well, again, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And everyone, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below to that. And again, Taylor, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.